I came to Auroville in 1968. I came apparently by chance, although of course there's no such thing maybe as chance. I was traveling around India, and I hadn't really heard much about Auroville. I'd heard 2 or 3 sentences about the mother. Actually, I heard that Auroville had been started and had failed. I think that was all I'd heard about Auroville. So I was on my way to Chennai, and I decided to spend one night in Pondicherry, and one night and one day. So the next morning after I got up, I went to the Auroville office, which was near the ashram, and the first person I met there was a lady called Alice, Navadit's wife. I had met her a year before in Japan, and so we were happy to see each other again, and she said to me, "You have to meet the mother." And I said, "Do I?" I didn't really know who the mother was. She said, "Yes, I can arrange it because I know somebody who knows one of the mother's secretaries, so I can arrange it." So within a few days, I actually did have a darshan with the mother, which obviously affected me very deeply, although at the time that it happened I wasn't so aware. But after that I never thought of leaving. Actually, before I met the mother, I had been on my way back to Canada, where I came from, because I'd been traveling for a year. And once I met the mother, the idea of, it wasn't that I planned to stay, but the idea of leaving never occurred to me. So I spent some time in Pondicherry. I was reading some Sri Aurobindo in the library, and various things. Finally, I got a job in the perfume factory in Pondi. I spoke to Udar, one of the mother's secretaries. He asked the mother if I could have a job, and this job was given to me. But in fact, before I ever showed up for that job, I was invited by Jean Maslow to come out to Auroville for one day and help him build a house. And what happened is the Land Rover that was supposed to bring us back to Pondicherry in the evening never showed up. So I spent my first night in Auroville, and actually I never left. I asked the mother if I could stay in Auroville and not go to Sauntours, and she said fine. So at that time, that was in September of 1968, there were, I think, 4 people living in Auroville, besides the people who were in Promise in the Orchard, which of course had been there a long time, even before the foundation of Auroville. And so the first thing, we had to do, living took all of our time. We had to bring all of our food from Pondi, and we had to build the huts, and during that time, September, October, November, the next 2 or 3 months, many people came. I think by the end of 1968, we were probably 10 people, or maybe 15 people, living in Auroville. And over the next 2 years, we became more than 100 people, especially when the caravan came from France to Aspiration. It was at the end of 1969. So I got involved in a project for fundraising for developing water resources at that time. And then in 1970, I went back to Canada to visit my family, and I ended up, I was hoping they would give me some money to stay in Auroville longer, but they didn't, so I went to work to earn some money, and I came back in 1972. And when I came back, I lived in Pondy for a few months, and then I moved to Centerfield and lived in the same house for the next, it was in 1972, and I lived there until 2 years ago, so until about 35 years I lived in the same house. So, maybe you can stop for a minute, okay? 'Cause I did. So, in those early days, there was a great sense of community in Auroville. But I am not, when I look back upon it, I am not so sure that things were so much better than they are now. Because our sense of community was built upon, I think, I mean, we were all, of course, here for the same ideal, but that's also true today. But then we had two common tasks which united us very much, and one was planting trees. It was absolutely obvious to everybody that the most important thing to do here was to plant trees, because Auroville was a desert. And the second thing was building the Matra Mandir, which was the soul of Auroville, and which was really, it was work that touched us all very deeply, and which we did together as brothers and sisters for Mother. So we were really very united in those days. And then, of course, we had some difficulty with the Sri Aurobindo Society, and in that struggle we were also united against them, which I'm not so sure, in looking back, that that's a very good reason for unity, to be united against somebody. Today, people are, it's very different, because India has changed, the world has changed, and Auroville has changed, and people today are very individualistic. The lifestyle today is much more materialistic. It's very materialistic here. In those early days we had nothing, we lived a very simple life. The materialism of today is very largely the result of materialism in India. That has been since about 1989, when India changed its economy, basically. But I believe that today, even though people are individualistic, I think many people, it's my experience, are working very sincerely on their inner growth. And I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I'm not sure that in the early days we really understood what that was. I think when the Mother was here, we didn't think that, I think we had certain expectations that Auroville would be finished very quickly. And we didn't really need to work very much on ourselves. It would be done to us. Also at that time we were very optimistic, because we could see progress in whatever we did. I mean, we greened the desert, so we were obviously making things better. In our relations with the village people, we were obviously making a very positive difference, because when we came they were hungry and uneducated, and you know, as we got involved with them more and more, and so many children started going to Auroville schools and so on, it was, and getting fed better and growing up big and strong, it obviously was making a big difference. Whereas today, we are in a certain way doing the opposite, because we are using too much water, we are causing pollution, although we're not, I don't think we're the main causers of the pollution by any means, but it's in the atmosphere to consume. This is in the atmosphere of India as well as Auroville. So, but I do think, as I just said, that many people today are working very sincerely on their inner development, and of course, if we discover our psychic beings, as Mother said, I mean, this is the first condition for building Auroville. And now I'm supposed to talk about what I did all these years here. In the beginning, I worked, well, in my first 2 years here, I was involved in a fundraising project for water development, and digging wells and building dams and things, and we were all involved in tree planting. When I came back, I worked a little bit on Matra Mandir, and then I got involved in handicrafts. And this was teaching the village women how to crochet and how to knit, and then the products that they made, we sold. And then I had 2 children, and so I was involved in the collective things that we did for raising children in Auroville, and the very early experiments in education. We had to start our own creche and our own kindergarten. This was before there was any real school in Auroville. And in 1992, I stopped doing handicrafts and ran a guest house. In the beginning, this guest house was mainly for students, and we had some educational programs which were for students from the village, students from Auroville, and guest students. Then 2 years ago, I stopped running this guest house, and I moved to an apartment. And my daughter is now continuing with the guest house. And the only work I'm doing right now is I'm involved in the administration of IKIM School, which used to be New Creation Bilingual School. And this is not a full-time job, but maybe it's a half-time job. And the rest of the time I'm doing things that I didn't do for many years, like I'm taking drawing lessons and painting lessons and ikebana lessons and reading a lot, and yeah, that's about it.
Okay.